So we have a tight time schedule tonight. In part, that's because of both that it's a school night, but also because many of our candidates, we have a huge district here, and they've got to crisscross the district left and right. We're driving all the time, so we got to make sure that we pay attention to time for them. So we have a structure to try to make sure that we can learn as much about these candidates as possible, and also make sure that we actually sort of respect that time for them. The format for tonight, we're going to give each of the candidates a chance to introduce themselves, so we'll go around and do that. We have 4 questions that each of the candidates will be addressing. They'll get 1 minute each to address that question, which is short, but they got the questions ahead of time, so I think they'll be able to do that. After which, they will have a chance then, they will have 2 minutes to do a concluding comment, and they'll be able to talk about whatever it is they want for that last 2 minutes. They'll keep them on time. We have Ellen Johnson here, who's working our lights. And so we have a green light that will go on when your time starts, a yellow light that will appear when you have 30 seconds to go, and then a red light when your time is at its end. At which point, when the red light goes on, if you're still talking, I'll start running and charging the stage and stuff. So we're going to stay on time as best as we can. And as many of my students can attest, I'm really strict about time. So
we're going to stand up. Can everybody see me okay?
Yep.
Okay, I prefer. All right. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here. Are there any former Pacific Lumber employees here? Anybody? Any former timber workers? Wow, it's changed. I've been living here in Humboldt County most of the time for over 25 years now. And I saw what Charles Hurwitz did to this community. He destroyed the ecosystem and he destroyed the jobs in 17 years. And he did it with the same kind of mentality that's running the country right now. What's going on in the country, we've seen happen here already. I'm the only candidate here who's actually lived and worked in all 6 counties. I'm the only one who is part of a rural community where the average median income is $35,000 a year. Where these people are from, with the exception of Dr. Courtney and John Llewellyn, the median income is $85,000 a year. We're also in a climate crisis which has motivated me. I'll talk about that more during this thing, but really, I'm talking about a new green America. We have to organize something we have not organized before. The other candidates are going to talk about things as if there isn't a climate crisis. My program is clear.
Thank you.
Shows that there is a climate crisis and we have to do something about it.
My perspective is quite different. I don't believe in trickle-down economics. I don't believe in trickle-down job creation. I believe we need a Green New Deal. We've been in a deep economic ditch. And in the 30s, the New Deal pulled us out of it. We need public investment from the federal government, jobs programs for young people, for those who've lost their jobs, who are underemployed. We can do it. We need a Green New Deal. We got to fight for it. Members of Congress who have endorsed me, who I'll work closely with if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, include John Conyers, who's introduced a bill for full employment tied in with a 1/4% transaction tax on Wall Street to pay for our federal jobs programs. We can get it done. Let's tax Wall Street to help do it.
There are no jobs on a dead planet. For 30 years, the Democrats and Republicans have failed us. It was Doug Bosco, a Democrat, who palled around with Charles Hurwitz as he looted this area. The only path we now have is a very concerted effort to get off fossil fuels and nuclear as fast as possible. My program is called New Green America. It's got 7 fundamental areas to deal with. We don't have time to go over it, so I encourage you to go to my website, caffreyforcongress.org. And what we have to do is we have to redirect trillions of dollars from these wars, this $3 trillion war that Bush and the Republicans and Democrats gave us, and a $10 trillion Cold War, and we have to put it back into our communities so that we can design what our economy is going to look like. We can design it within sustainability, and that means designing it around bioregions, ecological zones. We know about the ecological limits to economy. The other candidates here don't seem to really grasp that. We can't just create more jobs. More jobs in Detroit that produce 25-mile-per-hour cars is not the way to go.
So just, I have a feeling that our 2 mics have different volumes on them. My guess is that for our candidates that are using this first mic, we're going to need to keep the mic a little bit further from us. And for our candidates on that side, you're going to have to keep it closer. And I wish we had a sound engineer that was doing more than that, but it might just be the difference of the two mics. Thank you for helping out with that.
Thank you. The fair tax system will end the giveaways to the wealthy that the Bush administration initiated. We've got to end the extension of the tax breaks for the wealthy. It's totally unfair. And we also need to be willing and able to make sure that Wall Street corporations pay their fair share, which is much more difficult than it sounds. You've got to be willing to refuse to take corporate campaign donations. Those are not philanthropies on Wall Street. They're not giving money to people in the legislature in Sacramento or Congress in Washington, D.C. out of the goodness of their corporate hearts. So we need legislators willing to refuse to take corporate money and put a tax structure that cuts taxes for working people and increases taxes on those corporations that are getting away with unfair shirking of their responsibilities.
Anybody been to New Orleans recently? The economy is not coming back. As I said, no jobs on a dead planet. The polar ice sheets are melting. If Greenland's ice goes, we're looking at a 20-foot sea level increase. A 1-foot sea level increase here will be devastating to Fortuna, Eureka, Arcata, and other parts of this district. We cannot ignore it. We have doubled the range of CO2 that our normal oscillation goes through for the last 2 million years. It now has to go up twice as much. This has not happened before. This is serious. We have to get off fossil fuels and nuclear as fast as possible. So we have to fund a conversion. That means taxing the rich. Since 1979, the rich have gone from owning 8% of the national wealth to 23%. Ours has gone down commensurately. The only way to stimulate the economy is to get money back into the middle class and the poor people. And the way to do that effectively in the context of the climate crisis is to integrate economic development with the ecological catastrophes.
The sponsor of the main health care bill in Congress, H.R. 676, the main single-payer health care bill, John Conyers, has credited me and Donna Smith from the California Nurses Association with getting the concept of guaranteed health care into the National Democratic Party platform. He's given a speech that I heard in Washington saying that he wants me on the floor of the House with him to push for single-payer health care. I want you to know that I got a lot of advice during this campaign 6-9 months ago to spend all of last year just raising money and not talking about issues. I rejected that advice and among many other things took out a full-page newspaper ad, and the headline last summer in the ad was from our campaign, "Cutting Social Security and Medicare is not fiscal responsibility, it is betrayal." And I will fight like hell to defend Social Security and Medicare in Washington.
You know, in tribal cultures, the shaman or medicine person didn't charge people. Everyone had a right to health care. Health care is a right in this country as well. This happens to be the issue where we differ the least. I can tell you every single person up here, except maybe Dan, is going to fight like hell for Social Security, for Medicare, and Medicare for all. I want to talk about two other aspects. One is the right to not be polluted, the right to not be irradiated. I don't know about you, but there are about 1,000 toxins in my body. Okay? A couple of my friends are pregnant, and their mother's milk is poisoned. I'm going to fight to get us off fossil fuels and off nuclear, which takes care of the vast majority of the petrochemical toxins and radiation, as fast as we humanly can. The other part is, here in this area, we have problems with rural health care. I happened to visit your emergency room a couple of weeks ago, and it was a 55-mile ambulance ride to get up here. We have a problem with access to facilities, and that's something we need to design together, and I'm your guy to push that for you.
A very different perspective here. We have the worst of both worlds right now. The federal government is failing to assure that every child has access to quality education. and then imposes, with no child left behind and race to the top, all sorts of regimented, cookie-cutter, teach-to-the-test rules that are hamstringing our local school district and teachers. Let's give teachers the respect and support that they and the children deserve. That is the federal policy that we've got to fight for. And the reality is, it's very unfair right now to create all sorts of bookkeeping, manipulations, and creating problems at the state level, and then later on coming in at the 11th hour or the 12th hour and saying, oh, now we're going to rescue you folks. Well, look at this crisis that we faced this winter around school bus transportation in rural areas. My wife and I live near Tamales Bay in a rural area, and there's concern up and down the coast when we see that children are being put in an unfair position. That has to change.
I think we should have the best schools in the world once again. If you send me to Congress, you're telling Washington all the things that are on this little sheet of paper, and one of those is that we are now going to tell Washington what we want, what's important to us. We want safe communities, we want great schools, we want full funding for our security, police, fire, and the rest of that. Right now, too much of funding for education is dependent upon property tax, which means the kids in Watts or the people here don't have as good a schools as the people in Marin County or Beverly Hills. I want to equalize that. Secondly, I was trained to go to college or to work for a corporation in school. Those jobs aren't going to be here anymore. I advocate a program that teaches our kids and gives them work experience to create their own jobs. And I have a program for the senior year where if a couple of people come together and want to do it, start a business, they can take half the school load during their senior year and spend that whole year working with apprentices in the area where they are. And by the end of the year, they know how to work their own job. One of the things we haven't been able to talk about here is how are we going to deal with the people in Congress? How are we going to actually get things changed? Now, if you look at the 41 Republican senators, you will find that they all meet the diagnostic criteria for antisocial personality disorder, which is a kind of psychopathy, okay? I'm going in to fight. I'm going in to negotiate. I'm going in to educate the American people using C-SPAN and my own media that there is a way we can go. There isn't just the Tea Party option. There's an equal and opposite reaction called New Green America. It's what environmental activists have been talking about for decades, since Earth Day. But what we've done has not been adequate. When you look at the climate crisis itself, you can see that personal lifestyle choices are not going to do it. Obviously, the treaties aren't going to do it. When George Bush was appointed president, 1,000 mayors and governors around this country came together to try to fight the climate crisis. What they're proposing is 1/3 of what we need. That just leaves the federal government. We have to redirect the federal government, or Greenland's ice is going to go. Half of that ice sheet now is sitting on a layer of water. I'm not kidding. We have to consider this. Like I said, these other candidates, except for Dr. Courtney, act as if there is no climate crisis. The policies are the same thing we've heard. If I were in the Assembly or the State Senate, I wouldn't be bragging about it. What the state government has done is destroy our communities. I'm talking about rebuilding from the community level up. If you consider a tsunami, if you wait until you see a tsunami coming, if you don't leave early enough and go in the right direction, you're just as dead as if you sat there. So the question is, are we going to wait until we cross these thresholds? I went through the open firestorm. After that, everyone was great. Well, how come we weren't great working together beforehand? I'm here to try to get you to work together beforehand before the climate crisis ends it all.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be part of the gathering here this evening. Of course, it's hard to condense one's positions and backgrounds, so I hope you will visit our website, solomonforcongress.com. One of the reasons I'm hoping you will vote for me when you see Norman Solomon on the ballot is, and by the way, I don't pretend that I know that I will be elected, but I think we have a very good chance that I will be elected in this race, because we're running such a grassroots campaign. It's well funded, but from the bottom up, not from corporate top down. Let me give you a couple examples of how I think our campaign is differentiated. We go deeper beyond the liberal, progressive position that often is a bit perhaps facile. Let's take rural broadband. We all support rural broadband. I want to fight, yes, fight for rural broadband, but not to let Comcast charge $1,000 a year for people out in the countryside to get decent broadband. Just like rural electrification in the 30s, that is a right. We shouldn't be gouged. Another example, I am strongly in favor of legalization of marijuana. That is not enough. I oppose Walmartization of marijuana at the wholesale or retail level. I think we've got to protect the small growers and small farmers, and that's what I want to fight for in Washington when it comes to cannabis. Let me mention that I'm the only candidate in this race with any significant foreign policy experience at all. And I've spent 30, 40 years working on foreign policy, taking peace delegations to Baghdad and to Afghanistan and going to Iran. This is crucial for us. Nuclear weapons, dragging our young people to war, foreign policy is crucial. Let me close on this note. We've got to protect the water of the North Coast and prevent it from being sent southward. We've got to protect our rivers, and I'm going to fight corporate power to do that. Let me lastly say that I just got word a couple hours ago that Howard Dean's organization, Democracy in America, has just endorsed me for this race. Thank you very much.
We're truly in a historic moment here where we get to elect. We don't have an incumbent running. That's a rare thing. So I think maybe we should thank these 9 folks for stepping up and sort of participating. And maybe, I think, in the end, what it really comes down to is what we do. We get to make this decision. We first get to vote in June in the primary and decide who are the 2 people doing a runoff. We have a new primary system in California, so make sure that we're aware of that. And then in November, we decide who this person is. But maybe we can have the 9 candidates sort of applaud these folks for participating and coming out of it.